Alright, what is going on everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a video where I'm actually going to be talking about kind of the John Collins and Ben Simmons trade that's currently being reported. Now, I actually recorded this before the whole Cam Reddish trade kind of went down with the New York Knicks. So basically, a lot of times in the video I actually do refer to Cam Reddish being kind of a part of the package and this and that, but I kind of just wanted to make this quick little intro to kind of say, well, just ignore that, because originally Cam Reddish was a part of this trade idea and trade package that a lot of reporters were talking about before, of course, the New York Knicks, news did actually kind of come out. Again, Cam Reddish was extremely linked to go to Philadelphia alongside John Collins with Ben Simmons, and it just didn't happen. But I thought I might as well actually just upload this video, because there has been a lot of reports that a trade package is still potentially unfolding right now, and instead of it actually being Cam Reddish, it could potentially be a player like Kevin Huerter. So I thought it was still kind of just interesting to make this video and just kind of talk about the possible things. But yeah, just kind of ignore the Cam Reddish stuff, because of course he is on the New York Knicks now. But again, this trade could definitely very much likely happen, just except instead of, a player like Cam Reddish, it could be a dude like Kevin Huerter, who would actually be another really nice player for the Philadelphia 76ers. So again, I just thought I'd make this little intro to kind of clarify why I talk about Cam Reddish and that. This video was made before the trade was eventually announced. But of course, I just really hope you guys enjoy. And without further ado, let's just get straight into it. Wow, I did not expect to be making a video on this at all really today. It is extremely interesting that the Atlanta Hawks have actually come out of nowhere and emerged as kind of the most likely team for a Ben Simmons trade to happen. With this trade actually kind of being talked right now is really equal in my opinion. It is kind of being confirmed what this trade is looking like. According to Shams, he goes on to say that the Hawks are emerging as a potential trade partner for the 76ers in the Ben Simmons trade. Atlanta would potentially include John Collins and Cam Reddish in an offer for Ben Simmons. In my opinion, this is probably one of the best moves you're going to be able to do if you're a Philadelphia 76ers fan, because I honestly believe it would make quite a bit of sense. I don't necessarily know if John Collins is the right guy to bring in if you're the 76ers, but what I do know is I think Cam Reddish would actually be absolutely phenomenal for this 76ers team, and if he's going to develop somewhere, I think it'd be interesting maybe to develop on the 76ers. Probably not the most ideal situation, but hey, if you're the 76ers, you definitely improve from this. Tobias Harris would go back to guarding that small forward position, obviously. Then you would have John Collins at power forward. You would have three guys on there that can score 20 every night in Joel Embiid, John Collins, and Tobias Harris. And then you've still got Tyrese Maxey, Seth Curry, who are both averaging above 15. And then Cam Reddish, who I think is a dude that will eventually average around 15 points per game in his career somewhere along the line. I'm not necessarily too sure though, because when we look at this 76ers team, I still do think they need a point guard, and it would probably be appropriate to maybe try and buy out one or something like that. Like, I don't know why they didn't try harder to get Rondo. I thought Rondo actually would have been a really interesting play to bring in from the 76ers point of view, but they just kind of let him go to Cleveland for really nothing. I don't even know if they tried to get Rajon Rondo, at all. So it is really hard to see that. But look, if you do bring in Cam Reddish and John Collins, then your team is surrounded with wings and forwards like Tobias Harris, Seth Curry, Shake Milton, Georges Niang, Furkan Korkmaz, Danny Green, Matisse Thybulle, Cam Reddish would now be there, and John Collins as well. In my opinion, even though the Philadelphia 76ers would add a lot more wing depth and even forward depth in this trade, I still feel like they really need to go out and actually target a point guard. And I still think if they were to make this trade and trade away Ben Simmons for Cam Reddish and John Collins, I think it would actually therefore make a lot of sense to continue to go out for John Wall. Now again, I will be talking about the whole Ben Simmons Atlanta Hawks situation in a second, but I just really don't understand why the Houston Rockets still have John Wall on the team. Of course, he's just taking up a roster spot at this point. I mean, if they agree to part ways where, you know, because I believe John Wall is still guaranteed $44 million or something like that next season. If I was the Houston Rockets, I would just say to him, all right, we're going to pay you out the $44 million, but you're going to go and play on another team now, and we're going to give your roster spot to another kid who potentially could actually do really well for that Rockets team and, you know, could actually play for them, because it legitimately makes no sense to have John Wall on the team right now for the Rockets, because he's just taking up a roster spot. He's not playing at all, and he really has no worth in the NBA anymore, because even though every single team would love to have him, it's impossible to trade for his contract, really. Like, he hasn't played, in the last 3 seasons, he's played like 60 games or something like that, which is crazy to think about. So he legitimately barely has any value in the league anymore, especially considering his contract is like $44 million. So if I was them, I would just let him go to a different team, because they're not going to be competing for a long time at all. So what is the point of even having John Wall at this point when you could be given that roster spot to a young guy who can play a lot of minutes and potentially prove himself? Then I think the 76ers, they should 100% go out and get John Wall. I think he would be absolutely the most perfect player for them to get, as I still think they need another one of those, you know, shot creating guards potentially. But if they were to get John Wall from a buyout and then, you know, potentially get, of course, these 2 players from the Atlanta Hawks, you would be looking at a team that has a starting 5 of John Wall at point, Seth Curry at shooting guard, Tobias Harris at small forward, John Collins at power forward, Joel Embiid at center, while off the bench you would then have Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, Georges Niang, Furkan Korkmaz, Danny Green, Andre Drummond, Matisse Thybulle, Cam Reddish, and potentially even more. You're legitimately looking at a team that has like 12 players that could probably start on any team. Like, all 12 of those players could start on a lot of teams, and like 7 of them would be coming off the bench, which is absolutely insane to kind of think about. In my opinion, that team does not win the championship just based on the fact of like chemistry issues and stuff like that. But if you're going to go into next season, there would be really nothing that team wouldn't have. You've got an elite, you know, shot creator and John Wall at point guard, who can also be a really good playmaker. Then at the 2, you would have Seth Curry, who is an elite 3-point shooter, one of the best catch and shoot players in the game. At small forward, you'd have Tobias Harris, who I still feel like is really underrated. A lot of people will talk trash about him just because he's overpaid. But again, he can get you 20 every night while being pretty efficient. At power forward, you got John Collins, who can be inconsistent on the on the 3-point shooting, but has also always been a very athletic guy that can, you know, still decently space the floor, but also just be a great pick and roll dude. Has always been a dude that can set screens and just be absolutely insane doing his part. Then you got Joel Embiid, who's always an MVP candidate, top 10 pretty much for the last couple years at your center position. Off the bench, Andre Drummond, one of the best rebounding centers in the game. Danny Green, one of the best perimeter defensive, you know, 3-point shooters in the league as well. Tyrese Maxey, one of the best young shot creators in the game. The list goes on. Cam Reddish as well could evolve into being one of the best young wings in the game. I think eventually, look, I don't know if Doc Rivers is the right guy to be coaching that team. He could be, but eventually you'd think that would be the championship favorite if they got those 3 players in next year. You're basically adding John Wall, Cam Reddish, and John Collins for nothing, because Ben Simmons isn't even playing on the team. But if you're the Atlanta Hawks, you are absolutely, I think, loving this trade, because a lot of people have talked trash about Ben Simmons, but I actually think he would be a really, really interesting player to bring in if you're a Hawks fan, because right now, I think the Hawks, they're in a really weird spot where they have enough of those guys that are really, really good, you know, kind of 3-and-D type of dudes. You look at Bogdanovic, good 3-point shooter that can defend the perimeter. Same with Cam Reddish usually. DeAndre Hunter as well. I think they wanted Kevin Huerter to evolve into that. Just wasn't that great on the 3-point shooting. And then you still got, you know, Trae Young, who's also an elite 3-point shooter, and Clint Capella, and a pretty good center for what he does. There are so many of those elite shooters that they have. Even, you know, Danilo Gallinari, who I still feel like they need to move on from. If I was them, I would trade him, because he is averaging 10 and 4 on 39%, aka 40% from 3 in 22 minutes. But I just still feel like, I don't necessarily know if he works on this team, but even if they do keep him, they've got like 5 guys that are elite 3-point shooters at this point, where you can kind of say if you bring in Ben Simmons now, he would be another all-star that comes into the team, elite defender, great ball handler, and I think he becomes, I think, a really interesting player to have on this team, because I think he actually turns Trae Young into a way better player. And the reason I say this is because Trae Young on this Hawks team, he tries to do too much because they've got, you know, all of these 3-point shooters all around. There really isn't another shot creator on this team. Like, John Collins is trying to be the other, you know, shot creator, but he's not a dude that can, like, drive and then, like, pump fake and pull up for the mid-range or something like that. I feel like they wanted Cam Reddish to evolve into it. He just hasn't really. Bogdan didn't at all. They just need another shot creator, like a dude that can be that second option. And even if you bring in Ben Simmons isn't necessarily the shot creator, but I think he actually turns Trae Young into a decent different player and a better shot creator, if that makes sense. Basically, we saw how Steph Curry operated without Draymond Green. He didn't seem as effective in that season where they both had a bunch of injuries. It just didn't look to work at all. But when they usually run Draymond Green as that point forward where he sets a lot of screens and play makes a lot, and Steph Curry plays off ball, it's one of the most elite duos in the game. And I think Trae Young and Ben Simmons would actually do that quite a bit. You know, Trae Young, he's a dude that always has the ball in his hands like 95% of the game. But if you bring in Ben Simmons, I think Trae Young actually turns into that Steph Curry role where he might only have the ball around 30 to 40% of the game, and Ben Simmons has the other 60%. And while, you know, Trae Young has it that 30 to 40%, you've got Ben Simmons running around, setting screens, cutting to the basket, and kind of playing that glorified Draymond Green type of role. And I think we've seen how good, you know, Steph Curry and Draymond do this. I think you can legitimately copy and paste that with just a younger version in Trae Young and Ben Simmons. Plus then, you know, you've got these players like Clint Capella and Ben Simmons running around setting screens, and Ben Simmons still playmaking, this and that. Then you got a bunch of catch and shoot players around the two of them setting screens and that, including Trae Young, Bogdan would still be there, Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter, Danilo Gallinari, Lou Will if they keep him. All of these catch and shoot guys just running around while Ben Simmons and Clint Capella are setting a bunch of screens, and Ben Simmons therefore playmaking. So look, Trae Young's assists per game might drop from like 10 to 7, but his points would probably remain at 28, just with a bunch less shots, meaning he would be, I think, a way more efficient player because it would be able to get him a lot more open. Plus, then I think once you get that second shot creator guy in, look, who knows who that would be, but I'm sure there's someone in free agency. The team, I think, would be absolutely phenomenal in the long term. So I think this is actually a win-win for both teams. I don't think John Collins and Cam Reddish are the greatest fits for this 76ers team because they've got a lot of forward/wings. But it definitely is a really nice trade. And I think if you were able to get John Wall in, pretty much bringing in John Wall and these two guys for Ben Simmons, you're doing really, really fantastic, in my opinion. So, the Philadelphia 76ers, I think if they do these couple of moves, can be the team to beat next year. It just will be a really hard thing. And again, I think if the Hawks actually, I guess, take my advice, maybe, and I think this is what they're thinking, you know, at the time I made this video. If they copy and paste the Steph Curry Draymond formula and do it with Trae Young and Ben Simmons, I think that would be a really, really good long-term duo, and it would take a lot of pressure off Ben Simmons because he wouldn't have to be that guy every night like sometimes Philly want him to be. He can just be the playmaking dude that sets a bunch of screens and guards 1 through 5, similar to what Draymond does, and I think it would make a lot of sense for this to happen. And again, one more shot creator away, I think, for the Hawks, and they'll be back in the contention. But anyway, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest NBA content and NBA news. Of course, don't forget to go ahead and comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you guys think the Atlanta Hawks should trade for Ben Simmons? Do you guys think the Philadelphia 76ers should go out and get Cam Reddish and John Collins, and even try and get John Wall? Of course, I definitely would really like to know. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel, my IRL/vlog channels, and check my podcast as well if you haven't already. Links for them will be in the description down below. But as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
dance.